Hello everybody, the Music Fan is back, bringing smiles to the faces, knowledge to the people, and most importantly, music to the masses. And on today's installment of Digging Through Discographies, we are looking at the second album of the Haken discography. Now, last week we took a look at Aquarius, their debut album, a very good album with a lot of interesting ideas and a pretty interesting concept, even if it is a little bit cheesy. But it is one of their longer albums. It feels like they threw a little bit too much into every arrangement, and there are some stylistic ideas that kind of clash and some cheesy nature to it. But it was a good album, and one that made me want to take a look into their second album, which is Visions. Now, Visions was dropped on October 24th, 2011, but unlike Aquarius, which was written mostly on the piano by Richard Henschel, Visions was mostly written on the guitar, which you can hear in its more aggressive nature and harder nature compared to the more theatrical and whimsical Aquarius. As with the debut album, the members recorded their parts at home and then shared the files between everybody. So everyone got a little bit of a chance to work on the album. The album does feature a string quartet and a French horn player mixed with synthetic string and brass sections. Both string and French horn arrangements were arranged by keyboardist Diego Tejada and drummer Ray Hearn. The concept is kind of interesting. It kind of reminds me of Metropolis 2, Scenes from Memory, one of the quintessential albums of Dream Theater. If you haven't listened to it, of course, take a listen. I might review it someday. But it talks about a boy who sees his own death in his dream and tries to stay away from it and tries to do everything that he can to make sure that it doesn't happen. It's kind of cheesy at times, and I don't want to ruin the ending. It's an interesting one, and again, it reminds me of the ending from Scenes from a Memory. So it's an interesting concept to hear about. The album itself was dedicated to the mother of guitarist Charlie Griffiths, who died in 2011. And yeah, it's an 8-track CD. So let's dig in. The biggest thing about this album in comparison to the previous album is there's a little bit more of a more simplistic flow through everything. This is a much heavier hitting album with a lot more electric guitar, a lot more distorted guitar, a lot more bombastic arrangements, and not as much piano. There is parts where they do have that. Now also, the themes aren't as grandiose as Aquarius was. That's not to say that's a simplistic album. They're just able to get more out of less this time around. And the basic theme of a lot of the songs is this idea of going to the 1 and then doing the major 6. So it's kind of using this modal mixing. So for example, the beginning song, you get a E major chord that kind of transitions to the C sharp minor and then to a C major 7. And then it kind of does the same thing later in the song with a B to a G sharp minor to a G major 7. It's this beautiful, beautiful progression, and the way that they use that mixing is thrown throughout the rest of the album. So the first song, Premonition, being the one that sets up everything, kind of like the way that The Point of No Return on Aquarius sets up every theme on the album. I'll say it's cool now that instead of a 13-ish minute song where you have that first 4 minutes of it being the introduction to everything, they were able to now put it on as a 4-minute song, setting up everything, and then getting into Nocturnal Conspiracy. I really love Premonition. It is just start to finish. It builds so well. It adds so many interesting things. And as you'll see at the ending song, it sets up everything for the title track. and it just keeps flowing, and it's so cool to see what they can do with such a simple concept, just those 3 chords. It bounces through a lot of different ideas. Nocturnal Conspiracy, another decent song. It's a 13-minute track, and I like most of it. The chorus is a little bit grating because it's just going between 2 half steps, but I like the melody of most of it, and it has this very fun bridge part with solos, and it gets a little bit faster. It feels a little bit more musical theater-ish, and it uses a little bit of keyboard and stuff like that, but I love the feel of that middle part. And then it does eventually get back to, I believe, This Conspiracy. The only thing I don't like is after 8 minutes of this epicness, it goes into this other idea, a slower idea that doesn't really fit with the beginning parts. And it felt like it could have been its own song. It's now basically this 5-minute outro rather than a 5-minute song. The next song, though, is one of my favorites, and one of my favorite Haken songs ever. Insomnia uses, again, it brings back that idea from Premonition with the 1 and the 6, but then it also adds a 4 and a flat 2 chord at points. And it's this fun song. I believe that's in 7/8, and it's one of my favorite melodies on the album. And it has a fun bass line, and the bridge parts and the solos are a lot of fun. It's the best song on the album to me because of its length and just the interesting ideas that it can take from Premonition and put onto this song and make it a little bit funkier. The chorus is a lot of fun to sing. The harmonies are great. It's to me the highlight of this album. And then you get a little bit more of a subdued song with The Mind's Eye. It feels a little bit different from everything else so far, but it's a fun song. Not necessarily one of my favorites on the album, but it's a serviceable song. And just, it's nice to have a little bit of a difference, because a lot of the stuff that we've heard so far is somewhat similar. Then you get Portals, the second of the 3 instrumentals, and this one is more aggressive and just fast paced. If we were to go back to Scenes from a Memory, it kind of is that Dance of Eternity, if you will, of the album. It doesn't go as crazy on the concepts, but it's a fun instrumental that kind of is different from the more growing one of Premonition. Then you get Shapeshifter, which kind of does feel like The Mind's Eye, but it is a little bit more sinister and a little bit more cheesy. It has this pipe organ at points, and the bridge itself is a little bit too long. It doesn't seem to go far enough for my tastes, but again, another solid song. Then you get Deathless, that uses, again, the ideas from Premonition, but in a piano ballad. And it's beautiful. To me, other than Premonition, Deathless is that next one where it's just a beautiful, beautiful song. And it's cool how it uses ideas from Premonition and ideas from Insomnia in its music. And it's a beautiful change to everything else that's going on. And then finally, of course, we got to talk about the 22-minute epic, which is Visions. I think it is their best song in terms of the long form. Of course, you could pull out a couple of things and make it a little bit shorter, but it's an incredible song. It weaves everything from Premonitions and everything from what we've heard so far into its 22 minutes in length. And it's cool because I never noticed this. It's cool that how Premonition sets up all the themes in Visions, because you even get one that I haven't noticed, the doom boom doom 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 boom boom doom boom. That part in Visions is a little bit more jagged because it's going against another counter rhythm, but in the end of Visions you get I guess you won't remember me. I guess you won't remember that. So on and so forth. This really cheesy line that will make sense if you look into the story behind it. It's a fun song. It blows by, honestly, and even the ending is beautiful. The way that it ends, it uses again the ideas from Premonition, but makes it so beautiful. The way that the chords end with the string section is phenomenal. So all in all, a really, really solid progressive album. I think if there is a swipe against it, 22 minutes is kind of a long song, of course. You're talking about a third of, if not maybe like closer to a half of the album just on one song. And a lot of it does sound very similar. And there's a reason for that, of course, because of the idea of this protagonist falling back into sleep and keep having these same dreams and the fear of what's going to be coming. So I understand the idea of why a lot of the stuff sounds similar, but at the same time, if you aren't interested in the concept itself, you might think that it's kind of a one-trick pony on some of this stuff. But I think there's enough variance in the album to be able to be like, I can pick out something and make it worthwhile. I will say for me, the beginning half of the album is much better than the latter half, though again, Visions is phenomenal. I just love Premonition. I love Insomnia. I really like Nocturnal Conspiracy at points. And then that middle part isn't as interesting to me other than Deathless. But all in all, an interesting concept. I like that they were able to do more with less rather than throw everything in. The only one that feels like it could have been a little bit less is Nocturnal Conspiracy. I think Visions, even with all its parts, there's not really anything that I would take out from it. And that's a really cool part about it. The vocals are much better. Ross Jennings isn't using his growling voice, or is he screaming? It's the only time he ever did it is on Aquarius, and it's cool to see that he focuses more on his timbre of his voice, because it definitely shows through this album. And the melody work is great. There's a lot of really good solos. There's a lot of interesting chord progressions. All in all, just a fun album to listen to. If you can get past that, the selling point of the title track being 22 minutes, it's definitely a worthwhile listen. Much better than Aquarius. So that's why I am putting right now Aquarius number 2 and Visions number 1 in my rankings. But that is my time for today. If you like this album, of course, give this video a like. Let me know what you think about it, why you like it or why you hate it. Subscribe to my channel, share this video with your friends, and just keep on watching my videos. So, tomorrow, I will be back with another Are You In? And then next week, I will be doing part 3 of this Digging Through Discography. The first 2 albums are good, but the next 2 are heavy hitters, so I have to bring in a ringer to talk about these next 2. So you will see next week who I bring in, and until then, this is the Music Fan signing off.